Your brain is being sculpted right now, in this exact moment, by the thoughts you're choosing to entertain. Every worry you've rehearsed today left a physical mark. Every doubt you circle back to carved itself a little deeper into living tissue. By the end of this, you'll understand why the mystics who taught mental discipline were teaching something far more literal than anyone realized. Think about the last thought that kept you up at night, the one that played on loop while you stared at the ceiling. That thought was doing construction work. Your brain was laying down myelin, thickening connections, building infrastructure to make that exact thought easier to think tomorrow. The repetition you assumed was meaningless was actually a building crew working the night shift. This is where the ancient teaching meets the microscope. When Neville Goddard said assume the feeling of the wish fulfilled, he was prescribing a neurological renovation. When the Hermetic tradition taught that mind is the builder, they were describing a physical process they had no instruments to measure. The instruments exist now, and what they reveal is staggering in its precision. Every thought you think travels along a neural pathway. A single thought, once, is like walking through tall grass, faint trail, barely visible. Think that thought again, and the grass bends a little more. Think it 50 times, and you've worn a dirt path. Think it every day for a year, and you've paved a highway. Your brain physically allocates more resources, more blood flow, thicker myelin sheaths, stronger synaptic connections, to the pathways you use most. The ones you abandon get pruned away, dissolved, recycled into raw material for whatever you're building instead. This means your habitual thoughts are literally constructing the organ that generates your future thoughts. Sit with that for a second. The architecture determines what's easy to think and what's hard to think. If you've spent years rehearsing scarcity, your brain has built a scarcity superhighway, 6 lanes, well-lit, smooth asphalt, the abundance pathway, an overgrown trail you'd need a machete to find. So, when someone tries to shift their mindset and it feels impossibly hard, that difficulty is architectural. You're asking yourself to bushwhack through uncleared forest while a paved road sits right there, beckoning you back to familiar territory. The old thought is easier because your brain built it that way. The new thought feels foreign because the infrastructure doesn't exist yet. Yet, this is where discipline enters the picture and where most people quit too early. The first few days of a new mental pattern feel like pushing a boulder uphill. Your brain resists because you're asking it to build new roads from scratch, while perfectly good ones already exist. Why would it waste energy on construction when there's a highway right there? Your brain optimizes for efficiency, and your old patterns are the most efficient routes it has. But researchers studying neuroplasticity have documented something that should change how you approach every moment of inner work. Consistent repetition of a new thought pattern begins producing measurable changes in brain structure within weeks. The timeline varies, but the direction is always the same. Repeat it enough, and the new pathway gets its own myelin, its own blood supply, its own momentum. The boulder you are pushing uphill starts rolling on its own. And here's what makes this relevant to everything you've been taught about manifestation and consciousness. Your brain doesn't distinguish between a vividly imagined experience and a physically lived one. The same regions activate, the same connections strengthen. When you sit in meditation and assume the feeling of your desire fulfilled, really feel it, inhabit it, let your body respond to it, your brain treats that session as data, real data, and it starts building infrastructure to match. This is why Goddard insisted on the feeling. A thought without feeling is a suggestion. A thought saturated with feeling is a command. The emotional charge is what tells your brain this matters. Build for this. Casual wishing barely bends the grass. Feeling the wish fulfilled. Consider what this means for the concept of mental diet. Every spiritual teacher worth listening to has emphasized guarding your thoughts. The Dhammapada opens with it. With our thoughts, we make the world. The Bible echoes it. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. These teachings were dismissed for centuries as poetic metaphor. They're engineering specifications. Your mental diet is your construction schedule. Every thought you permit, every inner conversation you entertain, every assumption you hold about yourself. Each one is a work order sent to the crew that's reshaping your brain, 24 hours a day. You are the architect, whether you're drawing blueprints consciously or letting random contractors build whatever they want. Most people are running on blueprints they inherited, thought patterns absorbed from parents, culture, early experiences. They never examined the plans. They just kept building on whatever foundation was poured in childhood. And then they wonder why their inner landscape feels cramped, why the same rooms keep appearing no matter where they move. The discipline of mental diet means becoming the architect deliberately, catching the old thought mid-sentence and choosing a different one. Feeling the resistance, because your brain will resist, it has invested resources in those old highways, and persisting anyway. Each time you redirect, you're simultaneously weakening the old pathway and strengthening the new. One dual demolition and construction in a single act of awareness. Critics within the spiritual community sometimes argue that this reduces consciousness to mere biology, that mapping spiritual principles onto brain science strips them of their deeper meaning. The opposite is true. Finding physical evidence of what mystics describe through inner knowing doesn't diminish the teaching, it reveals how precisely the universe operates. Consciousness shapes matter, thought shapes tissue. The spiritual law and the biological mechanism are the same process observed from different altitudes. There's a particular kind of frustration that hits around week 2 of serious mental discipline. You've been doing the work. Catching negative assumptions, replacing them. Sitting in the feeling of the wish fulfilled every night, and nothing external has changed. Your bank account looks the same. Your circumstances look the same. This is the moment most people conclude it doesn't work and abandon the construction site half-built. What they can't see is that the renovation is happening on the inside first. The neural pathways are shifting. The default patterns are loosening their grip. The new assumption is gaining myelin, gaining blood flow, gaining the kind of structural integrity that eventually makes it your dominant frequency. The external world reorganizes around the internal architecture, but the architecture has to be built first. You don't see a building during the foundation phase. You see dirt and rebar and what looks like a mess. The mess is the work. This patience, this willingness to keep building when nothing visible has changed, is what separates those who transform from those who dabble. Every repetition of the new assumption is a brick. You can't lay one brick and expect a cathedral, but you can lay one brick every day with the certainty that the cathedral is taking shape in dimensions you can't yet see. Your brain is doing something remarkable right now as you absorb these words. The very act of understanding this principle is creating new connections. You're building pathways that link the concept of mental discipline to physical architecture, linking inner work to measurable change. Tomorrow, when you catch yourself spiraling into an old thought pattern, this understanding will fire. The pathway you're building right now will offer you a choice point that didn't exist an hour ago. That's the compounding nature of conscious thought. Each new pathway doesn't just add to your capacity, it multiplies it. A person with a well-developed abundance pathway thinks abundant thoughts more easily, which strengthens the pathway further, which makes the next abundant thought even more effortless. The rich get richer, neurologically speaking, and the same mechanism works in reverse, which is exactly why breaking free from entrenched patterns requires such deliberate, sustained force. You're standing at a construction site right now. Every construction site looks chaotic before the structure reveals itself. The old highways in your brain took years to build. The new ones won't appear overnight, but they will appear. The science confirms what the mystics always knew. Your sustained attention is the most powerful building tool in existence. The question was never whether your thoughts shape your reality. Your thoughts are shaping your brain tissue in measurable, documentable, physical ways every single second. The question is whether you'll pick up the blueprints or keep letting the old contractors run the job. Your mental discipline is the architecture of your future self. Every thought you choose in the next hour is a load-bearing wall in a building you'll have to live in. Build something you want to inhabit.